welcome back to Gallery Watch. We're here at a celebration exhibition for Robert Juniper. The response has been amazing. Enjoy.
I did the first book about Bob. It's quite a long time ago now, and there's been another book since. Well, it wasn't really the first book, but it was the first book written by a West Australian, which is quite an important thing about culture. He was a part of a group of artists called that call themselves the Perth Group, and they were a very, very important development in WA. They didn't last very long, but the two artists out of that became famous were Bob and Guy Gray Smith, and of course they are the two most important painters, really, in West Australian art history.
Seeing all these works on the wall, being at Gombok, where Bob had a long relationship here, and he's not here, but his work is here, so it's emotional. Yeah, you can always feel an artist through their work. Oh, he'd love it. Yeah, always loved a good opening. So, and there's lots of people here, so that's really good. And I think he'd be really proud. I think he would enjoy looking through this work because it really is a breadth of his career. So there are some quite early works here through all his periods, and it's fascinating. I'm still fascinated by it as well. He's a very, very talented artist, and when you see a range of work like what we have on the walls here today, you can really see that clearly. And I think he'd be proud of himself, and rightly so.
Interesting upbringing, quite bohemian, I suppose. It's always sort of interesting, surrounded by interesting people, artists, musicians, and so that was great. And just the personality Bob was sort of attracted those people. So yeah, it was a great upbringing, very, very adventurous. He sort of loved the outdoors, so we spent a lot of time in the bush and fishing, which was great. So I guess I look back on it as quite a sort of idealistic, ideal sort of upbringing, really.
Well, it was normal to us because he was our father, and he was the only father we knew or know. He was wonderful, and he was a great mentor to all of us. My brother and my sister are full-time artists, and my other brother and I both dabble. We grew up learning things at Dad's knee, and I was thinking this morning about even things like making jewellery out of pewter. When you carve something out of cuttlebone, and then you've gone down to the scrap metal yard and collected pewter to melt down, and then you break up an old clock to get the brass bits out, and you add it all together and you make some pendants for yourself. We were doing that as children, pre-teenage children. We painted, we drew. Dad was an art teacher, and he had lots of holidays, so we spent all of our school holidays with him, learning things at his knee, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. We were taken fishing, we had an idyllic life.
I'm sort of an environmental scientist and work in that field, and I suppose that the love of nature probably Bob had a part in instilling that in me, I guess. He was good. He was a great father. Very entertaining, always, not sort of jovial is the right word, but he is very sort of happy bloke. I mean, God, he loved his life. He was doing something that he really loved doing, and so I guess that joie de vie sort of, he was, and very loving dad, but yeah, very happy sort of man. So you can't ask for more than that in life, I suppose. So.
Bob always said that it seemed that he didn't do very many drawings, but it was his practice to do drawings and sometimes stick them to board and paint over them, so drawings were turned into paintings. So with as I said, the drawings here, the graphite work is pretty rare. There are some etchings, aquatints, serigraph prints, so there's a great range of things here to see.
The work has been mostly in Dad's private collection until he died, and then the family has held it after that.
This is a mixture of works on consignment, works in the prints owned by us, his children, and paintings from his personal collection that we inherited. So yeah, it's nice to see such a broad range of things from basically from 1950 up till the early noughties. So it's a big range of styles and influences.
It's a huge thing, but we've had marvellous help from the Gombok Gallery. They're very old friends of Dad's and of ours, and it's this beautiful gallery really showcases the work as it should be. Very few other galleries would have the capacity to have a show this size, and very few other galleries would have the capacity, would know Dad's work as well as the Gomboks do, and be able to match the pieces and put the pieces where they need to be and to show the pieces off at their best. So it's been yes, it's been work, but mostly it's been work for the Gomboks, and the family has been incredibly grateful for them and what they've put into the exhibition.
For me, it's enormous because it's a tribute exhibition, a celebration of his work. It's the first time all of his prints have been seen together in one place, and a fairly significant collection of his paintings too, so I think it's marvellous. But I suppose that once you start looking at the work as a whole, in a collective sense, it really speaks volumes about his prolific nature of his work and the many styles that he's embraced, and also the breadth of his artistic vision, you could say.
Well, I'm just walking through here, and it's an extraordinary collection of work, and it also has a very peaceful effect on me walking around here and seeing it, because I haven't seen a body of work of Robert's for years, and it's absolutely beautiful. Yeah, I think it's so great that Gombok Gallery have done this, because so many of them have seen his work over the years, but never a collection like this. So extraordinary, and when you look at some of them that have been sold, they are exceptional, and they're also affordable. I think there is a sophistication in his work at any rate, and I think that as one matures you see things in a different way completely, and you can see it in the work. Yeah.
And how do you think he sees the world?
I actually think he sees it in an extremely positive way. Which is lovely, which comes through, otherwise you wouldn't get the peacefulness in the work. But I think it's very quirky as well. In many of his particular prints are very quirky. I think he is extremely iconic, but I think he could be more iconic. Yes, in the actual valuing of it, and to see it in... I mean, I know there's a lot of them in collections, which is great, but I think that it could be even more so if it was put out there, and particularly having them in foyers of big corporations and in hospitals and things like that. I think it tells you a lot about Australia, and therefore if you want to see things really in a way that you can relate to. I was just talking to people how his work you can actually relate to, and very often very contemporary work you actually can't relate to as well, but this work is very personal and also very acceptable.
I think Bob Juniper was really one of Western Australia's most outstanding and notable artists, and his evocation of the West Australian landscape, I think, is really meaningful to those of us who've lived all our lives in Western Australia in particular, in fact, and travelled right around the state, and seeing his representation of images from around Western Australia, and more widely to some extent, I think is really significant, and it's wonderful to see them all brought together here in this exhibition at the Gombok Gallery. Yes, Robert Juniper was my art teacher at Guildford Grammar School when I was in first year there back in 1968. I can't say he developed any wonderful creative skills in me in particular, but it was certainly a great experience being in his class. I went on to study science subjects, much more so in fact, but it's a great pleasure now, having been Arts Minister for 8 years in Western Australia, in fact, to have had some interaction with him and his family, and to see in more detail some of the wonderful works that he's produced over the years. I think he was pretty well established as a significant artist in Western Australia then. He was certainly on the way to becoming so, and it was not much longer, I think, that he left teaching in schools to become a full-time professional artist, but it was really quite notable, and a significant part of my memory at Guildford Grammar School that he was the art teacher there. in my time at the school, and I was very honoured to be asked in my role as Minister for Culture and the Arts to speak at the memorial event that was held after his death in 2012.
Could you keep the costs down? Because we'd like to have it there, and if it's...
How would you describe his art?
I would describe his art as beautiful and highly eclectic. I would describe him as an artistic genius. I would say that because I'm his daughter, but I'm also one of his greatest fans, and I'm not alone in saying that. He was an artistic genius.
To be really authentic, I should have had some old Emu Brewery brown beer bottles, because I'm quite sure that the river floor is littered with those. But to be aesthetic, I omitted that detail.
You've been watching Gallery Watch from the Gombok Gallery, a celebration exhibition for Robert Juniper. Thanks for your company. I'm Angela Albuquerque.